Okay, Mathias Vermeulen, it's really good to speak with you for the first time. We've exchanged a couple of tweets, I think,
Yeah.
over recent weeks, but this is the first time that we've interacted, so it's good to meet you. Just a bit of background for the chat then. So, Isabelle de Klerk in Belgium had the idea of doing a social technologies in business book, and she then went around the world and managed to coerce 14 other authors to write a chapter or more than one chapter in the book. And Mathias is one of the co-authors.
Yes.
It's worth you introducing yourself, Mathias, in terms of what you do as your day job.
Okay, so I'm Mathias. Pronounced in Dutch is Matthias, but hey, I'm cool with that. And I run my own small organization called Winston Wolf. And for those who enjoy Quentin Tarantino movies, it's a character from Pulp Fiction, Winston Wolf, played by Harvey Keitel.
Okay.
So that's a little bit background on the name of my organization. Very small, only 3 persons, and we develop digital learning solutions. And I'm, as the owner, I tend to follow up on trends, VR, AR, artificial intelligence, and also social tools to implement in the workplace.
Okay, that's great. And so a bit about me. I read the book. I wasn't planning on reading the book, but Isabelle was pretty persuasive, so I read the book. And then as soon as I started reading it, I just got loads of questions come to my mind, not in terms of challenging the book, but just what do I think about the book? How would I implement it? The people that I'm working with, how would they respond to it? And the questions just kept on coming. So I collated all of those in a blog post and posted that, mentioned to Isabelle, here's a set of questions for your book. And then recently she asked me to interview a couple of the authors. So that's why I'm here. And just to say, I'm an IT professional. I work for a services company delivering solutions to major organizations across the UK. And I've been doing that for some 30 plus years.
Okay.
So we'll crack on. So Mathias has written 4 chapters in this book. And I'm going to do them in a bit of an odd sequence. I just wanted to get straight into ESN for Dummies as one of the chapters that you wrote. Could you just summarize what your key message was in that particular chapter about the dummies bit? And I'm conscious that there might be people watching that have heard the acronym, heard the label, and aren't particularly familiar with what that actually means in terms of people's day jobs, etc.
Yeah, but well, the task that Isabelle gave me was it should be a book that's open to everyone. So experienced people, but also people who just getting started with the whole social thing. And that's why we decided to write a small chapter on basically what is an enterprise social network. For people who really have no experience with it, they probably heard of Yammer maybe in the workplace or from Facebook or Slack. So that chapter for dummies was pretty much for dummies. So that people could get used to the term and what we would discuss in the next chapters.
And I certainly know quite a few skeptical chief execs, senior managers, etc. So how would you summarize what an enterprise social network is for that sort of senior person?
Well, I don't know what ESN exactly has it as their tagline, but in my opinion, it's where modern day work happens. It's where people come together online to just collaborate, share, learn. That's what an enterprise social network is, and they all have the same features. Some have more features than others, but basically it comes down to a place where people can work together online, in my opinion.
Okay, and if you were confronted with somebody that said, we use Microsoft Office throughout, we've got email, we've got SharePoint, we're collaborating on SharePoint files, etc. How would an ESN help that sort of organization if they're already sharing stuff pretty comprehensively and well?
First of all, I would be glad that they already use tools to share and to work online. But in my opinion, an enterprise social network gives you the advantage of clustering all those tools, integrating all those tools into one platform. So people don't have to go from tool A to tool B to tool C to collaborate, but they just go to the enterprise social network, and this is where it all happens. And they can integrate, plug and play, and just go on with their work.
And apart from reading the book, which is obviously a very comprehensive book, multiple perspectives on the same subject, what other resources would you recommend to people if they wanted to move on from the book and explore the subject further?
Well, there is the Twitter chat, ESN chat, which is very good for people who want to learn more about good practices, what tools to use. And I tend to read a lot. So I follow a few people online who write blog posts about it. And from there on, I just click, move on, read. I save some stuff in my Digo account for further notice. And then I read on, I annotate. It's just read some books, read some articles, talk to people online, learn from experiences from other people. That's how I took a deep dive into the whole subject a few years ago.
Okay. And do you use a social network in your organization? I know you said there were 3 of you.
Yeah, we use Slack, and we only use Slack. So we do have an email account to communicate with some customers, but we don't use it internally. So I never send an email to my colleagues. Everything happens with Slack, and we integrate it with Dropbox. So all our files are shared into Dropbox, and we have made a smooth integration into Slack. So we don't use the free version of Slack. So we have a paid subscription, which gives you more benefits. Yeah, I'm a huge Slack fan.
Okay, and would you say something about the channel setup that you use?
We have one general channel where all the normal day communication gets stuffed in, and then we work from project to project. So each project we work on has its own channel, and there we share, because it's possible that I'm working on project A and Sonny or Jolene, my 2 co-workers, are working on a different project. So everything, if they need to know something, we post it into the specific channel that's linked to a project. And every now and then that gives us the opportunity to share that channel with the clients. So if I would say that the client needs insight on our channel, I just invite our clients and they can collaborate into that specific channel.
Okay, and how long have you been doing that last bit of collaborating outside your organization?
From the beginning.
Okay.
I started with the free version, and that was, I think, 3 years ago when I started my own organization. And one of the first projects we did, we instantly invited 2 people that worked for the client, so that we would no longer have to send emails, look where we stored the specific email or a specific file. So just one Slack channel, everybody could communicate. It's easy to find something. Yeah. So from the beginning, I've been using Slack with clients.
Okay, and I know that lots of the fans of social networks have the attitude and the view that it's the death of email. Is that something that you see happening in the near future? For a particular organization and its customers and suppliers?
For my organization, we don't use email internally, but you still have communication outside your own organization, and I don't see it happen that email will die or will disappear, or whatever term you want to use. But once people are getting used on the benefits that an enterprise social network could give to your organization, I think that interconnection between systems will, email won't disappear, but in some organizations, it's possible that it will drop with 50%, for instance.
Okay, and I'm conscious that the bulk of conversations about social networks tend to be exclusively within the one organization, rather than widening it out.
Yeah.
So that's the first of the 4 chapters that I wanted to talk about. The second one was, you did a chapter, how to choose the right enterprise social network. Now, I know that for every organization, the answer might be completely different based on size, scale, what their infrastructure is, what the business strategy is, what the technical strategy is. But if we try to distill some principles, what would you advocate as being a best practice procurement approach to adopting a social network?
Well, I've written about 3 strategies, but choosing the right tool is one of the hardest things to do. So the right strategy depends on company culture, I guess. In my opinion, you could say, go for it, test some platforms, see what benefits they give you, and see if they fit your needs and your organization. But I know that in a lot of companies, you will have a no-go for that option. So you will have to involve IT, procurement, and all those other departments in your organization. So the best strategy, I'm really not sure what to say on this question.
Okay, and so when you say that certain platforms relate to certain cultures, was that a procurement issue in terms of the culture of procurement, or that certain tools foster a certain kind of culture because of the nature of the tool and the platform?
Yeah, I think your second answer. I've once said, show me your culture, and I'll tell you what ESN you will be having in your own organization. But yeah, that was a bold statement, but I'm pretty sure that your ESN is a reflection of the culture that lives inside your organization, and that's the reason why Yammer, although they receive sometimes rather poor reviews from a user perspective, is still king in a lot of organizations, because their whole culture is built around the Microsoft environment.
Sure.
And they're not that open to use tools like Slack or other ESNs that are out there. So a cultural thing in an organization will pretty easily create a short list of ESNs.
Sure. And I remember hearing and watching some of the Slack Frontiers presentations a few weeks back, and some of the speakers were actually making the point that in their recruitment strategy, the fact that they were using Slack was a major draw for some of the people that they were recruiting.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Yeah, but the thing, it's written in a book, but what fascinates me was the fact that the people who created Slack, that was a gaming company. They developed serious games, and just they had 2 offices, and to make sure that they were both on the same side, they created a small tool to communicate and collaborate. And that's why Slack is today such a huge player, because it was built by users for users. And that's a whole other thing compared to the big organizations who thought, hey, let's build a Facebook-like network for organizations. It was built with another mentality and from another perspective.
Sure. And you're reminding me that I read recently, there's a life hacker series called How I Work, where they get senior people in all sorts of organizations saying how they work. And the CTO of Slack was a really, really interesting read, going into the background of the gaming bit and how they got to Slack. I may put a link on that in the notes from the call. You said earlier that fundamentally all ESNs were the same, but there were some ways of differentiating them. Can you just explore that a bit?
Well, basically, they all work around working together, collaboration, sharing. But there are some platforms that are way better in the communication part, or better in the file sharing department. So it all depends on the specific needs you have. And if you really want to have something that's very good in instant messaging, short messaging, then Slack could be better. But if file sharing is key in your whole ecosystem, then maybe Jive is better. So every system has its own strengths and weaknesses, and it depends on what you really need to make a fit with your own organization. But basically, they all do the same, but it's like a car. They all take you from point A to point B, but within the car, there are functions that are better in car A than in car B, and vice versa. So it's the same thing with ESNs. I see a lot of organizations nowadays are looking for a learning management system, which is something else. And there you have the same things. Basically, they all do the same thing, but depending on from one system to another compared, they have their own flaws, their own strengths, and it depends on what you really need to choose your own ESN. So that's why writing a chapter on choosing an ESN is very hard, because it's very specific from organization to organization and what you really need. And what we often forget, and that's referring to your first question a few minutes ago, always involve your end users. Do not think about what do we need as an organization, but think, what do my employees really need to get the work done? And if you want to choose the right tool, then you have to involve your employees in the whole process.
And how do you see collaboration actually changing moving forward? I remember I got into an immense amount of trouble at one organization that I started in, because I was asking for a shared drive that everybody could access, because that was where I was going to put all the project documents. And I was looked at as if I was completely out of the game. Why would you want to do that? We've obviously moved on significantly from there, that we have got, corporate shares, team shares, and all the rest of it. But how do you see collaboration changing as a result of these tools? And perhaps a more specific question, is there functionality in Slack and other ESNs that's not there that you think ought to be, and is like the next thing?
That's a tough question. I don't know if there are functionalities that aren't there yet and should be implemented. But I think in a few years, the whole artificial intelligence thing will also get a grip on ESNs, and maybe before we really need to know about some things, we will already get noticed about it, if you know what I mean. Sure. The whole automation features that will be implemented in a few years. So if IBM is working on Watson, I don't see a reason why they would not implement that technology in their social network. But that said, if I see a trend in collaboration, I don't really think so. I think people have always been looking out for how can we do our work better, and if it's not organized by the employer, they go and look for a solution themselves. It has been so, I think, way back in time, and it's still that way. If people really need help, they know where to go. But nowadays, with the tools that we have, it's more easy to work together with people who live in another country, who work across the ocean. That's the main advantage. But people will always find a solution, always, regardless of a tool.
Okay. I had high hopes with a tool called Google Wave many years ago. Did you ever see that? Is that ringing any bells?
No.
So it was effectively an email thread, IM thread, document thread, and then you could introduce people to the start of the thread, or just introduce them at a particular point in the thread, and they could actually replay almost in real time how the conversation went. But that actually died a death in beta before it ever saw the light of day. But it's still fundamentally one of the things that I would say I still need, because I need all these threads all in one place. Okay. The third chapter that you wrote, and I think that you started to touch on this with the AI bit was the automation and integration.
Yes.
And you said that these were crucial for successful ESNs. I just wondered if you could give us some examples of automation use cases and tools for automation.
I used two specific tools. One is for my more personal use. That it's called If This Then That, IFTTT.
Yeah.
And the other one is Zapier, Zapier. And those are tools that make a communication between two applications. So input in application A creates output in application B. And if you could use tools like that with your ESN, then you could make work way more easy, because you should see an ESN as a place where work happens. So all the administration and the boring things you have to do all day long, they can be automated. And if you can integrate them into your workflow, into your enterprise social network, that gives you a huge benefit of time and just, no more stress. So we use it in our own organization. So we have Feedly and some other social bookmarking sites who send us on a daily notice articles, blog posts, videos that could be of interest to me or my two colleagues. And instead of looking out for those articles and share them manually, it all gets automated, and every day we receive our daily digest of topics that are of interest to us. And that's what I mean of integration. If you could make sure that all those specific tools we use every day get integrated into one system, that gives you a huge benefit in time.
And have you written any of these for Slack? Are you using any of the Slack integrations and automation?
I'm using a few Slack bots, so bots that are created specifically for Slack, and I'm using Zapier in combination with Slack. So input in one specific tool gets sent out to a Slack channel of my choice. Yeah.
And I can see a challenge for some people implementing ESNs is going to be, not only do you have to choose the actual kind of platform itself, but you've then got like a vast array of integrations and automations that there's like a further selection process to basically say, out of the box you get all this, but then you get like 1,000 integrations, and you've got to pick from like a list of 15, say, that fundamentally do the same.
Yeah, it's a whole system, and they're all linked together. And setting your ESN, do the setup of your ESN, that takes a lot of time. What tools will we integrate? How will we integrate them? In what channels will we send a message A, B, and C? But once you get past that point, it's just so easy. Every morning I start Slack and I receive my daily articles. I browse, I say, okay, this one is interesting. I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to bookmark this one into my Digo account. So it's becoming the way I work. And I don't have to spend time looking, searching, filtering. Everything gets done for me.
Sure. And the fourth chapter that you wrote, which is the first of the chapters of yours in sequence in the book, is the one about low budget and easy to use knowledge sharing tools. Now, you've already said a few things about that, but can you say something about what was your intention with that particular chapter?
Well, that was Isabel's question when we started the first outline of the book. What chapters will we write? What could be of interest for our readers? And I'm a tool fan, not from the tool per se, but just the whole idea behind the tool. What could it do? How could it benefit my work or my daily life? And from that point on, we started looking how could we use some tools, basic tools, just to share knowledge in our own organization or in my own network, online or offline, be it on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, I don't care, but just give people easy to use tools to get starting working out loud, sharing their stories, learning from each other. That was the idea behind that. But then again, it was what specific tools will we discuss, knowing that I had a limited amount of pages that I could use to write. So I could have written a whole book on tools, but yeah, we had to skip and select and yeah.
And so, again, if you were speaking to a chief exec or another senior leader in an organization, and they were wanting to have a bit of a play with some of these tools, are there some that you would specifically mention that were easy to use for that sort of person to get started?
Well, from a senior or an executive point of view, I think the best way is to start blogging.
Okay.
Just write down what you're doing and share it into in your own organization. That would be the most basic and the most easy way to get started. Just write it down and share it to your colleagues, to your employees, whatever. I mean, yeah, I try to blog every week, and I know it's not that easy to come up with stories every week, but I mean, there are always people who get inspired by what you have to say, or say he's writing complete rubbish this week, but it's just a way of sharing my view to how I live, how I work, how I should work, to my network. So writing.
And what's your motivation for doing that? Is that for things like not forgetting what you thought at a certain point in time? Is it to increase your profile? Is it part of your personal development and reflection?
I think I never really thought about that one. I would be lying if I would say it's not for personal. What word did you use? Personal.
A reputation.
So personal reputation is always out there, but it shouldn't be reason. It shouldn't be reason number one. Why I write every week is just to reflect on what I learned, how I see certain things, and maybe inspire one or two or three people who are looking for answers and who say, hey, maybe we should check out what he wrote, or maybe we should do the exact opposite of what he did. I don't know, just sharing and hoping that maybe one person picks it up. And it's just a way of processing my thoughts, because I read a lot. I see a lot of articles passing by, and I have to some way, deal with all that information. And writing is, for me, the best option.
And I've seen conversations recently around, especially with individuals that are running their own organizations. They've got their own business. There's a few of them like yours. And there's a bit of a concern that if I think out loud and it's half formed, or I really am thinking out loud, it's not like a professional, it's a polished thing. Do you share those concerns, or is that just actually part of it? If someone's going to engage you, then there's a polished bit, there's a work in progress bit, and at the end of the day, we just need to ship the posts.
I never really thought about that one. My tagline is "Don't worry, be crappy." So
okay,
that's not my
issue. Yeah,
it was Guy Kawasaki who once said it in a keynote. Don't worry, be crappy. In another context, but there are weeks that I take a few days to write down some stuff. There are days that it's just in 20 minutes, the whole blog post is written and posted, and I don't care about typos or whatever. So it depends on the mood I'm having to,
Okay. I'm being heavily influenced at the moment by a Gary Vaynerchuk in the States.
Yeah.
who talks about this thing about document your process, not the end result. Because if you wait to be a superstar, you might never get there. And the argument is, how much fun would it be for people to actually see his life story?
Yeah, but
prior to him buying the New York Jets or whichever sports team
buying
he's
the
trying
New
to
York
buy.
Jets wouldn't be a good investment right now, I think, because they're not the greatest team around. But how Gary Vaynerchuk works, that's pretty awesome. And he gets away with the F word a lot, so that's cool. But yeah, he's documenting everything. So that for me, that's a bit overkill. He does all the social media. He does video. But yeah, if you need inspiration, he's the number one guy to go to. I think. Yeah.
Okay. And what platforms do you publish onto then, in its widest sense? So is your blog on your company website?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you publish anywhere else, like LinkedIn or Medium?
No. So I have a WordPress site. So WordPress offers you all the tools you need to write down your own stuff. So, and I'm pretty cool with that. I tried LinkedIn once, but I've seen that my audience is not, they're obviously on LinkedIn, but I don't reach them as good as I reach them using my website.
Okay.
So, yeah, because the algorithms of LinkedIn, I don't get a hang of it. I don't understand them. When I publish on my website, I know that I will have my frequent visitors and they will pick it up. And I chose WordPress, so there's no reason for me to switch to Medium or another platform. No.
Okay. And I'm conscious that when I read the book, there wasn't anything in there about the author's websites and presences. And so as part of the stuff that I did with the questions, I actually found everybody's web presences. So it was interesting to see that you were on the four main ones: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. This is all text at the moment. Are you playing with video? Have you got any plans to start using a video for your blog?
I have my own YouTube channel.
Okay.
And I did, I think, a few vlogs a few years ago. But for some reason, writing was way more time efficient for me than doing video.
Okay.
I've been thinking about doing a podcast again, maybe doing video. I'm going to a conference next week in Las Vegas. So maybe I will shoot some videos out there. So I haven't really skipped the whole idea of podcasting and using video. But for me, writing is the best way, the most easiest, time efficient way to say what I have to say.
Okay. Have you played with Snapchat at all?
Once. I did Snapchat. So I have a Snapchat account, but to be honest, I don't get it. I don't see it.
Okay.
And I used it all wrong. So I used it at a conference last year, and my idea was to do a Snapchat story about a session I was attending.
Okay.
But I never realized that after 24 hours, your whole story is is gone. So when I came back home, I would do some marketing and some public communication around my Snapchat story. And the whole thing was gone. So there it went, my whole Snapchat history. And then I decided, no, I'll skip it for now and see what happens in a few weeks or months. And I didn't use it ever since.
Okay, I'm only playing with Snapchat. I'm not a regular Snapchatter at all. But I'm finding that in the same way that Twitter forced me to use words more concisely, Snapchat, because of the 10 seconds, makes you speak in real life shorter. So it's an interesting discipline. And I've seen people that deliberately leave their videos to die after 24 hours. And there's others that upload the whole thing to YouTube as an archive, and I can see the pros and cons
Okay. But
of both.
I've seen good examples. I mean, Helen Blunden from Australia.
Absolutely.
She does magnificent things with Snapchat. But for her, Snapchat is her way of communicating and expressing herself.
Sure.
And you just have to find the right vibes and the right tool that fits your needs and your, So, but she's doing great stuff with Snapchat.
No, I agree. And just to go back to Gary Vaynerchuk, he told one story recently. I can't remember the video platform that he was talking about, but he said he must have invested about 100 hours of his time learning it. And by the time he'd learnt it, it effectively died and it was no longer in existence. And instead of saying that was a crying shame, that was a waste of his time, he just said that was a fundamental part of his learning the tech in that area, which is why he's doing lots of the stuff that he's doing now. So I just take that as a real encouragement to actually learn and have a play, because even if you don't use it, then it just encourages your brain and your thinking in a certain direction.
And I speak, I'm not saying I speak a lot for bigger audiences, but when I do, and I have to give them one takeaway, that it's a very easy one. Every Friday afternoon, once every 2 weeks, close the door of your wherever you work and just get a subscription on a tool, play with some tools, test things out, experiment, learn, fail, repeat. I don't know.
Sure.
Just buy yourself some time to get a grip on some of the tools out there, and then look for what can I do, or what can my organization do with one of those tools. But you have to give yourself that time to what Gary Vaynerchuk did also. Test things out, experiment, and learn from stuff, and then reuse it into your own organization.
Sure. And if you had a magic wand and you could get any tool that you wanted, what's fundamentally missing in your work or play life?
Right now?
The world's your oyster.
Yeah. I don't know. I have the feeling that I can do whatever I want to do with the tools I'm having. So, but obviously you see tools come and go. I was a huge fan of Twitter, but now I see that the last few weeks I haven't been tweeting that much like I did in previous years.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think I would say something like Twitter, but then Twitter has there aren't a lot of professionals from my domain, being learning and development, on Twitter. The big names are on it, but if I speak to colleagues in Belgium, I think maybe 10% is on Twitter. So if Twitter would have the big audience like LinkedIn for professionals, that would be, for me, a huge tool. If I could use the benefits of Twitter and the audience of LinkedIn.
And is that a language issue in terms of it's in English?
I don't know. I think Twitter. Yeah, it's the 140 characters or the 280, whatever they're testing right now.
Yeah.
But I think that most people are still afraid of having an online identity and sharing their own thoughts and ideas. Most people who are on Twitter only follow people and see what other people have to say.
Sure.
So and that's that's what I'm missing. I want people just to share what they have to say, and if I like it, I will like it, and if I will disagree, I will disagree. But don't have to be afraid just to put your thoughts online. I mean, just food for thought, and maybe a start of a conversation, which will lead to new learning, new insights, new people you get to know. I mean, the world is my oyster. Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. And this might be an unfair question, but I saw that you tweeted Jane Hart's list of the top 200
Yeah.
tools. And I just wondered if you had any view on, were you surprised that those that were new entrants or had moved significantly higher, the ones that had dropped out? You may not remember, but I was just interested because you're like a tools man, and I just wondered if you were shocked or whatever.
But I'm not shocked. But what always surprises me is that there isn't much of change.
Yeah.
When I think it was the fifth time I participated myself.
Okay.
With my tools, and the top 10, I think it's like this, the top 10 from 2017 is basically the top 10 from 2007, and people still rely on the good old tools that have been around for quite a while. PowerPoint is still out there. The whole Office suite is still out there.
Yeah, YouTube,
Twitter
Google search.
Yeah. So people still rely on the big names and the tools that are doing what they need to do. And every now and then there are small unknown tools for me that come out, that pop out, say, hey, let's have a look. And they disappear and they come back. But a bold prediction, the top 10 in 2027, I think we will still have YouTube, Google, PowerPoint, the Microsoft tools. I mean, we don't like change. People don't like change, and they don't change their tools also.
I was going to say there's a positive aspect to the static nature of this, that we don't have to change our lives the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, a few years ago, everybody, I don't know if you remember, but there was a social network called Hello, and they would storm the world, and they would give an example, they would give an answer to Facebook, and they would be better than Facebook, and Facebook would disappear. And they worked with invites. Hello worked with invites, and there was a whole buzz created around the social network. And what we see, I mean, if I talk about Hello today, nobody knows about it. If you talk about Facebook, it's still out there, and it's getting bigger and bigger. So, and that's the same thing with the tools. I mean, every now and then you can say, I'm going to change my tools, a new tool to shoot some videos or to create something else, to create a presentation. But at the end of the day, we still go back to PowerPoint to make our presentation. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just conscious of time, so we need to start to wrap up. I just thought that because I was talking to an author of a book, I should ask you about your writing approach for the book.
Okay.
And if you've got like a particular place to write, how you write, if it's all online on your device, if it's paper and pen, all of that good stuff.
And there wasn't any paper and pen involved. No, it was just me finding time to write. So I had a deadline. Isabel told everybody, okay, the 15th of January, you have to send in your first draft version. And then there's my nature. So I think I started the 10th of January because I knew, oh damn, in 5 days I have to send a draft version. So I need the pressure to write. If you would say, write me a blog post and you have 3 months time, no way I'm going to start today. I will start at the end of this year. So, and it was just clustering all the information I had, do some research, especially for the tools, for the enterprise social networks. I had to do some research. I tested most of the platforms. I tested myself, and I think I have seen a lot of review sites, reading user reviews to all the platforms. So the most time I needed was doing the research on the ESNs. The tools chapter was something I wrote in a few hours because most of the tools I have been using for years and I know what they do, what they can do. That was the easy one. The enterprise social networks, a lot of research.
And overall, was that a good experience? And are you going to write another book on your own or with
Well,
others? Or is this the start of a publishing empire?
nah, I don't think so. This was very fun to do because I had a clear structure. I knew what to do. I knew how many lines of how many words I could use on every chapter. But the whole setup of the book, the following up, reading, doing some corrections, that was not for me. So I had an easy job. I just had to write some chapters, and Isabel gave me feedback, and I had to rewrite some stuff.
Okay.
But doing my own book, honestly, I would not know where to start or how to start.
And if you were to write one, what would you write about? Because I'm aware that you've got like wider interests than just your business.
If I would write my own book, it would be a book like this one for experienced people, but also people without no basic knowledge of the whole thing. On just how to be a modern day learning and development professional, and tips and tricks, good use cases. I mean, the chapters in the book, in this book by Isabel, with the use cases, I think you can get a lot of inspiration from them.
Yeah.
So if I would write my own book, it would be something similar. You could just pick the chapters you're interested in. Some tools, some use cases, some ideas for novices, for experienced people. But honestly, I don't think that will happen in the next few months or years.
Okay. And you mentioned that you were in the learning and development field. Where do you see all that going? As a marketplace and as people learning in organizations and on their own and wherever else?
I could talk for hours about this question. It's the same thing with the tools. There are some trends. There are some things changing. We're talking about virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, the whole AI thing. But in reality, we see that there's still a lot of basic work that needs to be changed before we could take the next step.
Okay.
So I'm going to some conferences in the United States on learning and technology, and I see some really cool things, and I have a clear vision of how it could be in an ideal world. But people are still struggling with some basic things.
Sure.
So there will be change, and I think the whole
And in terms of what you offer to the marketplace yourself, are these training sessions, training courses, whatever they are these mainly text, or are there videos, and what's your delivery mechanism? And I'm asking that on the basis that lots of the stuff that you've said is about you love writing things down, and I'm thinking, aren't we moving away from seeing lots of writing on lots of screens as a prime way of learning?
That's because I'm not a techie guy. So I have a game developer working for me and a graphic artist. So we're working on games right now. So that's what we do for a living. But I'm not a graphic. Don't let me draw anything. And I don't understand coding. So there's only one thing I can do, and it's spreading the word of working out loud, sharing your ideas, how to be a good L&D professional.
And I'm assuming that you write stories, though. Do you do some of the storytelling for the games?
That's So that's what I do. If we need to create a story for a game, that's something I do in collaboration with my two colleagues, of course, and with the client. But most of my time it's just catching up with all the trends,
Okay.
and try to figure out how to use it in the learning and development profession. So I'm experimenting with chatbots, for instance, a lot. The past few weeks. So it's just, I always say, close your door for a half a day every 2 weeks. That's something I do, let's say, every week for 1 day. That's how I can
very good.
be competitive.
Sure.
Because we're only 3 people, so we have to be in front of all the trends just to spread it. So.
And what's your marketplace? Is your marketplace Europe? Is it Belgium? Is it further afield?
Well, if you know Belgium, we have a Dutch-speaking part, Flanders, and we have a French-speaking part.
Yeah.
So my clients are always in the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium.
Okay.
And so it's a pretty small geographical area.
Yeah. Okay. And if we wrap up then, I just wanted to know what was next for Mathias Vermeulen. Where are you off to next? Where's the business going next? Where are you going next?
Well, that's one trend I've been seeing in the past few years compared to when I started. It's people are seeing the advantages of using games for learning. There has been some interest years ago, but people were more intrigued by the whole gaming thing. But now I see that a lot of organizations are really prepared to take a risk and use it in their own strategy, in their own learning strategy. So what's next for us? I think it will be creating some games for clients and just continuing what we've been doing for the past few years, catching up with trends and trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Oh, very good. And as we wrap up finally then, what is the best way of people getting hold of you? Have you got a preferred mechanism for people getting hold of you, like a contact page on your website or Twitter? Or
I think Twitter is my most international network. Obviously I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm not a huge fan of LinkedIn myself. So if people want to get in touch, just go to Twitter, type in Mathias Vermeulen, and you will find me, I guess. Ask me a question, get in touch, start a conversation.
I just want to say thanks for your time, Mathias. It was a joy to spend some time with you, to get to know you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you for your 4 chapters. They were helpful.
You're welcome.
They were helpful to a newbie. And as I learn more, I'll stop record, but we'll just carry on shortly after.
Okay.
I'll speak to you later. Cheers.